bold, right?
Absolutely.
And to being called in a certain direction, and of things that God's calling her to do, and just to step out on faith and to be obedient to God. So she felt the presence of God talking to her, right, which is a good thing. So a lot of times we do, and sometimes we think we're going crazy. Should I do that? Should I not do that? But she had faith and trusted in the Lord, and so I'm going to let her just share what God put on her heart and kind of go from there, and then I'll ask her a couple questions as we're going, so go for it.
Okay, awesome. So thank you so much. So yes, my name's Kristin Steyerman, and you'll see my husband and I sit in the back. His name is Bill. And we have some friends who are here today too that came from Brea, so that's really awesome. So thank you for being here. But just this idea of being uncomfortable. And I turned 40 December 31st, and so my word of the year, I always try to talk to God, and he put bold on my heart. And I knew that I really need to get into a deep relationship with God and to be bold and to do some of the things all of the things that he called me to do. So I'll just kind of start with the women's gathering is something that some of you have been to. And that was a little bit uncomfortable, right, to go to that and talk to people and all of that. And then Karen shared something with me that I'm so grateful for. Like, I'm forever grateful for her. But she talked about this organization called Love Life. She had a flyer that she shared with me, and we were talking about, the pro-life movement and that kind of thing, and how we need to be bold as a church about that. And so she shared that with me, and it was like God kind of said, like, take the next step. Go to this and then go to that, and I'll lead you, right? I'll be with you during it. And so I'll talk about this Love Life a little bit later, but I think something you have talked about, Pastor Rob, is, if God puts something on our heart and we don't do it, he's going to use somebody else to do it, right? And I was like, I do not want that. Like, I want to do what God has called me to do. And like you have said, one day with God is better than a million days with the world. And I have totally, found that out. And just being uncomfortable, I know it's so simple, but even just reading my Bible every day, that was not something that I did before. I don't want to be like a bad Christian, I know. But I did it, I started from the beginning and be like, oh, goodness gracious. But then I'm like, no, you know what? I'm going to dig in, and I've been reading Samuel 2 every single day, and it's just changed my life drastically. And just speaking to God and being with him and praying. And he, like you said, he downloads information. He's constantly talking to me, and that's beautiful. And one thing we've learned during our prayer walk is I don't want to be a Christian who just plays church on Sunday. I want to be a Christian who is a light for the world, and who, Sunday is super important, but not where the light confronts the darkness. That happens in the day-to-day things that I'm doing to be a light to the world and just to stay as close to Jesus as possible. So definitely been working on that.
Awesome. So a little bit of your story that you shared a little bit.
Yeah. So, I talked about this pro-life movement, and it's been so strong on my heart, and that's kind of one of my things too, to be bold in that. And if I can just save one baby, then I think that it would be worth it. And I know we serve a God who would never, under any circumstances, be okay with ending the life of one of his children. And we know that. And I'm so happy that the youth is here too, and I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that. But I think abortion is the largest tragedy to ever happen to the women's movement. We also know that women are not the authority on abortion. God is the authority on abortion. And, we know that he says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart. And I think sometimes not having these tough conversations with our teenagers and with our young kids, but we know the world is going to have these tough conversations with our kids if we're not willing to. And I probably talk about this topic maybe a lot in our life. And my son Sawyer, who some of you know, he's 8, but he's like, Mom, you're not going to talk about abortion again. It's like, it's funny, but it's like something that we constantly, I don't want him to be in a place when he's a teenager where he doesn't know what to do. And obviously setting him up, talking about Jesus, coming to church, all of that is so important. And I'll just kind of share something with you, like about my testimony and my story. And that was kind of one of the songs last week, right? Grace rewrote our testimony. So when I was 20 years old, my best friend, who I was friends with since kindergarten, she got pregnant and she didn't know what to do. And she decided to have an abortion. And I thought I was being a really good friend, and I drove her to Planned Parenthood. I scheduled the appointment. I paid for it because she didn't have the funds at the time. And I thought I was helping, right? We were Christians growing up, and we went to church on Easter and Christmas and some of the ones in between, but this isn't a topic that we talked about in my house, so I didn't know what to do. I thought I was being a good friend and doing the right thing, but I wasn't. And just the trauma and the shame and the grief and the sadness that comes along, and that's something me helping somebody do it caused all of that. And then fast forward to May of 2020, Phil and I were pregnant and we lost our little baby Sparrow. And that was the worst thing that ever happened to us. And then January of 2022, we got pregnant again and we lost our little boy Solomon. And I thought that God was punishing me for what I had done 20 years ago. And I was so angry and so mad, and angry is not even a strong enough term. And we were at church, and you probably would see me, and I was in the back, and worship made me so upset and angry and sad. And I would sometimes come in my pajamas, if I'm being honest, and I would sit there and I would be just so angry, like, why did this happen? But then fast forward to being able to pray and really dig in and be uncomfortable with God. I know that I serve a God who is not a punishing God, and bad things happen. And that was just a good example of like healing and praying and understanding that God would never want that for me. But we also know that God redeems human failure for his purpose, right? And so just going through these experiences have been able to do that. So yeah, do you want me to talk about the love life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. I know I'm like going from, I like have my notes here.
She's preaching, just go on.
So, action, like how to get involved. And I just want to say, Karen and Andrew have come to this love life walk all of the times with me and Phyllis has been there, and it has been beautiful. Love Life is an organization that for 40 weeks, they are going to go out in different areas, and they go into a Planned Parenthood, and you pray and you worship, and there's no screaming, and there's no yelling, and there's no scary pictures, but it's just the light, the love, the prayer, the worship, and most importantly, Jesus. Because I know you had said this last week in a conversation to me, that not everybody who's for the pro-life movement understands Jesus. But this organization does. It's all about salvation, right? Saving babies, but also salvation. And Karen, I will say, is so amazing because she had shoulder surgery on a Friday at 2:30, and it was raining on Saturday, and she was out there in the rain worshiping and praying, and she said to me, like, Jesus endured so much more, and so she has just been this beautiful light, like quiet and awesome, but just this beautiful light. And I have never felt Jesus as much as I have during these walks, talking about uncomfortable. It's like, if you can worship out on the street with sirens and horns and people kind of looking at you funny, and in the rain and in the cold, you can definitely worship here. And we know that worship is for God. It's not about us, right? We know that David talked about that in the Bible. He was, God is worthy of our praise. And even if it can be undignified to other people, it doesn't really matter. It's about God. So just kind of all of this is talking about, we really want the church to go out with us on April 29th at 8:45, and I'll have some information, and if you want to talk about it later, I would love to talk about it with you. And just the process is like, you go to this church, you check in, you get a shirt, and I'm happy to get a shirt for you.
Shirt?
You get a shirt. Oh. Yes. And I'm happy to pick it up for you earlier, and then you go and you pray and you worship, and then you walk to a future building that they're hoping will be a pregnancy resource center, and then you are going to go to a Planned Parenthood, an actual Planned Parenthood where babies are killed. 70 babies are killed at this particular Planned Parenthood every single week. So we are praying that they tear that building down. Sorry, we pray for the security guards, the doctors, the accountants, all of that, right? It's just a whole process. It's not just going and doing that, but it's also they provide baby showers for moms who choose life. I have a picture here that I can show you. This little lady here, you see she's pretty pregnant, but she chose life for her baby, but she also chose salvation. And that's amazing. And we want our light to shine in a place of darkness. And when we know when light shows up, darkness has to flee, right? We know that from God. 400 babies in California are killed by abortion every single day. That's a huge number. Abortion is the leading cause of death, not cancer or heart disease, but that. 1 out of every 4 women will have an abortion, and 50% of those women identify as a Christian. So we know as Christians we must be bold and we must show up for people and not just talk the talk, but actually walk alongside people. And that's kind of, what I'm hoping to do. And I just want our church to join in and really come alongside this. So thank you for letting me talk. And I talk a lot at work. I give presentations, but this was so important for me to get right. This is so important. And I prayed, God, please just have me say the things that I need to say and have them hear. And from the youth too, it's I know that it can be uncomfortable for boys to talk about this, but it is so important, and I just want us to be that church and that light and love for this. So if you want to talk about it, I'm here. I think I hit all my points that I wanted to hit. So thank you.